Welcome back to the Madison Advisory AI podcast. I'm Amanda Werner Thompson, and today's guest is someone whose story is unlike anyone we've had on this show. Carlos Vasquez spent nearly 17 years in prison, including 3 years in solitary confinement. He came out with $200, one contact, and a couch to sleep in. In the 5 years since, he has built a leadership consulting firm, founded a nonprofit, written 5 books, launched a podcast, and developed an AI powered app for foster youth. In his newest book, The Leader's Price Human Centered Leadership in the Age of AI, publishes next month, and it speaks directly to what we explore on this show: what it means to lead with intention, empathy, and clarity, especially as AI shapes how we work. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I'm very excited to give our listeners the opportunity to meet you and get to know your story more. Can you take us back to the moment you got out when you had $200? You knew of one person that you could sleep on their couch, and you had 17 years really to process. What was going through your mind in those first few days of freedom?
Yeah, well, the world changed a lot. I went in, everybody had flip phones. When I got out, everybody had smartphones. And, you know, when you're gone from, society and all the innovations and everything that happens for so long, you kind of feel more so like limited. You feel like you're behind. You feel we'll never be able to adapt and make it. It's just so much going on. It's hard to understand. But I think most people that are formerly incarcerated experience that. But for me, I've always been very curious. And I think that that curiosity led me into the fear that originally was there as far as like trying to learn how to make my way instead of just getting a job like they told me I could only do, which would be a warehouse job for the rest of my life. I just refused to believe that. And so I was curious. I started to explore things and I realized that, anybody can make it, regardless of your past, where you come from. You can create an extraordinary life. And I used to see people on social media, and then I met my friend Peter, who had a similar story as me, who was really successful after being out for about 8 years of doing some time. And it just, all those things were like proof that I could do something. So originally I was a little bit intimidated. I was a little bit unsure. Everything was so new, but after maybe couple months out, I just started to really adapt quickly, and that was what really helped me to get everything going from that point on. When I just had the mindset to pursue it.
As you started to adapt quickly, you identified what you wanted to do with your life. How did you reach that point, and how did you identify it to what it was?
Yeah, I was in prison. I tell leaders today, leadership starts within. If you want to lead people, you truly lead people the right way, you have to first be able to lead yourself. And what that means is that you understand yourself, that you have a purpose yourself, and that you have all the different fundamental principles that make a great leader within you already. So I did the work on myself first, for many years, and then after that I started to work with other men in prison. All of them were lifers serving life sentences, and they were my target audience for this because those were the ones I seemed to get along with the most, because it was a lifer mentality. Prison lifer mentality is different than just a person in prison. A person in prison who has this vision of getting out one day, and lifers, that's in there. They have to come to the resolution, most of them, that they probably may never get out. And so there's a different mindset. So for me, it was like, if I can help these men, then that's me doing like extraordinary work. So I did, and that's where I started my first mentoring and coaching. Didn't even know what mentoring and coaching really was back then. Just started to do it, and then when I got out, I kind of felt like I lost my purpose because I was helping so many men in prison, and I was free now. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? How do I fulfill my purpose? And how do I wasn't even thinking about creating a business yet. And so, but me doing it in prison, eventually, when I started to learn about business and start my own, I realized that, there was this big need for coaching and for advising and for mentoring. And so I started my company and built off of that. And first it was working in education, and then it ended up being now into corporate. And so, yeah, I just kind of started in the most unlikely place, and then it evolved into the work that I'm doing now with people. Developing people has always is what I go back to. It's like, we're all people. We all have the same emotions. We all deal with the same things, same struggles, same fears. All these things in our own way. And so, what we do as an organization can really impact anybody. But we focus in the corporate space and leadership because that's our mission, is to reach as many leaders as we can because they'll have the most influence on people. That's our philosophy.
And when you started mentoring the lifers in prison, was that before or after you had earned your degree in psychology?
It was after, yeah. I started to work on myself when I was in solitary confinement. I did 3 years in solitary confinement, and all I had was books. And I read a book a week, and for 3 years. And so I read over 150 books, and those books, and I was always had a love for reading, so that was a plus because I really enjoyed it. And then I started to just really learn so many powerful things, and I put them into practice. And I started to learn about human behavior, and I understood what PTSD was. And then I realized that, like, a lot of the characteristics of that was something that I was experiencing in my life because of the things that I saw. And then I started to find ways to heal and to work through them and to process things. And that whole journey for 3 years helped me to then get out of solitary back to general population and get my degree in psychology. Really, just because I wanted to learn more about myself and the men that were around me. Like, I really wanted to understand. So that's why I ended up pursuing it. And in that process, I learned a lot that helped me to help them.
Can you walk us through the realization you had about PTSD and when it really clicked for you?
I didn't understand why I had so many, nightmares, and I had feelings of guilt and shame because my best friend committed suicide in front of me when I was 16 years old. I, I blamed myself a lot for that, and I carried that with me untreated, and it really made me hate myself and hate others and lash out and become violent. And so, when I started to understand that and read about that and some of those same feelings that I had, um, I was like, wow, okay, I put a title to it. So now what do I do to try to fix it? And unfortunately, in prison, there's solution. When I was in there, definitely there's solution to any type of mental health crisis is always, oh, you're just depressed and you're stressed out, or what, take these pills, and they would give you these medications that would literally make you unfunctionable, and even to the point where some men were wearing diapers because they couldn't even get up out of bed to use a restroom. And for me, I didn't take any medication the whole time I was in there because of that reason, because I didn't want to become that. Not to say that as a free man, I wouldn't take medication because there's some stuff that could probably truly help me. But in that place, you just didn't trust it. So I didn't. So I had to deal with everything. And I realized that, and there's a lot of studies today about this as well, that, like, really going on this inward journey and healing through, like, just recollecting and processing things and understanding them, and crying and feeling all these emotions and releasing them is really powerful. And that was like my process to get out of those feelings of guilt, shame, and nightmares, which I haven't experienced since I left solitary confinement.
And it seems like that self-understanding really became the foundation of the work that you do. And in the work that you do today, you're speaking with leaders across healthcare systems, corporations, and schools. What is the common thread that you see in terms of what most leaders struggle with beneath the surface?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because you're right. I've spoken in so many different places, City of Hope, medical places, to schools, to prisons, to YPO corporate events. It's like, and I asked myself when I go to these different places, it's like, what is the the common thing that I see in all these different places, different fields, different, people doing different work. It always goes back to like just humanity, and that us in our lives, as busy as we are, and the things that we're doing in our work, it's always a powerful moment when you can kind of just get back grounded into like who we are as a human being, in terms of like what our ability is to help another person, how to have compassion and empathy for others and yourself, how to recognize the people around you that are working with you side by side and creating those really great relationships, and how all that thing that can translate into any business or any organizational setting, these humanity principles of leadership. I tie that into my life story, because in my life story, there's people that have come into my life that have, led me down really dark paths, and then there's people who came and led me through and gave me opportunities to become who I am today. And so anybody in these rooms or anybody in these conferences that I'm speaking to has to like take a personal assessment of themselves and ask themselves like, what kind of person am I for the person next to me, for the people next to me, for my family? Am I leading them in a subway, even maybe even subconsciously? Am I leading them in the wrong way, doing the wrong thing? Am I not leading by example, or am I, leading by example, and am I doing the right thing? And so my story and my message, it brings that, it's like an awakening to everybody, opens their eyes to this, that some people don't even think about. They just go through life and don't really process where they are and where they stand as a leader. So, which I always say anybody can lead. So that's really anybody can truly resonate with it. So, yeah, that's what I've typically spoke on.
And so it really makes your audience take a look at themselves first and see how they're treating themselves, which is similar to what you've said. You've said you have to lead yourself before you can lead others. What does that look like in practice? And how do you get leaders who've never examined their own psychology to actually do that work?
Yeah. Well, for me, leading myself, it's an ongoing active practice every day. I always try to look for ways to get better. Try to practice the things that I'm preaching. Try to practice, the things that I write about. Trying to be a spectator to my thoughts, as much as I can, to understand, to think about my thinking, to understand like why am I reacting this way, and trying to figure it out. And so it's nonstop, because I aspire to be a great leader every day, but the aspirational part of it is really key, because sometimes it's not always like that. Sometimes I make mistakes and I do things, and that's okay. But I think that is, first of all, the main message is that you're not going to ever get it 100% right. It's a consistent thing you have to work on. And I think for me, working with other leaders and getting them to like kind of pause and really look at their life and then make steps toward change is always, I always found that it's typically through, just inspiring them in some way, whether I'm speaking to them and then they come up, one or two people come up afterward and say, this is exactly what I needed to hear to start my path or to do different. Or, maybe it's somebody that, just kind of observes me from wherever, social media or my pod, they're observing me on a day to day. And then through that observation, they were like, man, this guy's leading by example. He's not just talking. I like that. I'm going to do the same thing. And so it's always trying to inspire. And that's why inspiration is one of the principles that I talk about, because being an inspirational leader is actually what's necessary to kind of spark the change, to light the flame that then obviously needs to be, built on. But I think that I was personally inspired myself, so I understand that there can be that moment, there could be that book, there could be that one thing, that one person that comes into your life to do one thing that just inspires something that goes on to change your whole life. So I think the inspiration aspect is really important.
Was there one moment when you were inspired after
Yeah,
release
yeah,
that prompted your success?
yeah. So before release, it was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl was the book that I read, and that inspired me to get through that solitary and to really just be in control of the way that I respond to my situation. And then when I got out, I had all the tools and I had all of the makeup to get out and not go back, to get out and be a productive citizen. I had all that, but I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything at all. I didn't own anything. I had $200, starting from nothing, knowing one person and having to build my whole network, everything. So the one thing that inspired me when I got out was I had an opportunity to speak, pitch my business at Google for funding, kind of like a Shark Tank style pitch. I remember like just preparing for it because the business school program I was doing, it's kind of like a benefit. Have a profitable business before you graduate, then you can pitch to Google for funding for your business. So that was my one goal in life, and I knew I'd get there, and I did. And so when I got there, I was like, okay, I got to prepare because I don't know. They're going to ask me all these questions, and they're going to want to know like what's my plan and all these things. And I was so nervous because I knew I really needed this, and I went in there, I pitched it, and I got the funding, but not only did I get that, each and every one of the people on the panel committed to being my personal mentor. And these were like incredible people that had accomplished so many amazing things. So it just opened up so many doors for me. I got personal mentors and coaches that helped me that I didn't have to like pay for at the time because I didn't have the money. And so that was the point that I knew that was that moment, that inspirational moment that knew like, okay, that I could do this, because I didn't have to do
Right.
it alone. And that was really important.
That is important. I think that a lot of leaders need to take that into their own weight too, to be
Yeah,
that for somebody else as well. It's always important to bring people up with you. Let's talk about
exactly.
the book, the Price Framework:
Sure.
Purpose, Recognition, Inspiration, Compassion, Education.
Yeah.
What's the insight that holds all five of those together?
Yeah. It's I there's so many things that I learned throughout my life, particularly when I was in solitary reading all the books. And I realized that, the things that helped me most was always like having a framework. It was always a system that tell me what I need to do, right? Type of thing. And I'll follow the steps. And some worked, some didn't. And for me, when I was creating my own, I looked at everything that I had learned and everything that helped me. I came up with the price method, the price principles, which is an acronym that represents each of them. Purpose, it's like having a why every day. In prison, you get up in solitary, and even just regular GP prison, you get up every day and do the same thing over and over and over. And some days you don't want to even get out of bed. And it's just really difficult. So the one thing that kind of always helped me was just, my why every day. My why every day at the time was to get home so that I can take care of my mom who was homeless at the time. And I remember it was like I didn't love myself enough to do it for me. I didn't like myself to do it for me. I didn't even feel worthy of it. But my mom and that idea of me helping her was my everyday why. So I got up in the morning and I did what I had to do. Um, and I just always reference that why, right? And so it's important to have purpose as a leader for yourself, a personal, purpose and mission, and then also helping others to attach to whatever purpose or mission that you're doing at your organization and as well as their own personal purpose and missions. And I do that with my own team members that not only they know our mission, but I help them to figure out what their personal mission is as well and make it happen. So that's one. The second one is recognition, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's so important to recognize people for what they do, what they're contributing, things that they do on a day to day. Like if you have a child and you see your child do something kind, you're going to go recognize that. Like, good job. That was really nice. You get to do that with people, recognize them. And I think that's really powerful. And for me, that was like transformative when people recognized my growth and start to see the change and tell
Mhm.
me like that was motivating. And then the third one is inspiration. Like I mentioned earlier, just being an inspirational leader. And what that means to me is leading by example, doing what you say you're going to do, keeping your word. Those things inspire people, practicing what you preach. And then compassion, obviously, is important. Having empathy and with empathy, with that is it also action. So doing something about it is what compassion is. And really understanding, like not just being there for a person when they're broken, having that compassion, and instead of seeing that maybe they made a mistake on the job, that maybe there's something deeper there that created that. That's like a level of compassion, and to go find out what it is and to see how you can coach them through it is compassion. And then lastly is education, and it's just having a lifelong learning mentality, like knowing that you're never done learning, especially now and with all the things happening with AI. I'm a continuous learner. I know I have to be. And so that's a principle that I feel every leader should have, and also model for others to have that same mindset. Because as you know, it's like every week it seems like there's something new to learn. And like, so those are my principles. I break them down more extensively in my book and my talks I do as well. But yeah, and it helps and it works for me. So I felt like I needed to share it.
And in your latest book, it's specifically framed around leading in the age of
Mhm.
AI. You
Yeah.
use some AI in your own business. You even built an app for foster youth using it. What is your honest take about where AI helps and where it can undermine leadership?
I've been using AI. 2021, I got out of prison. ChatGPT was a thing, just starting to, hit the scene. And I remember doing my resume on there, and it just like was like, wow, like this is because I couldn't figure out how to do a resume. And I was like, this, I didn't have many skills, or I didn't have a lot to really put on the resume. But what it did was, I just wrote everything, and then it created something that really was like, wow, like I feel like I didn't have to go, hire somebody to do this, or I didn't have to find somebody and take their time to show me how to do this. Like I can take control and do it myself. And it really empowered me. So that was my introduction. And then I kept using it throughout. And then, yeah, we just recently built an app for the foster youth to do to help them discover their passions. So it's like all my work put into one space that we've trained so that they can have like their own personal coach from me. And so yeah, with AI, I'm an optimist. I feel that it's going to help a lot of people. It's going to create some great opportunities, and it's disruptive. So obviously, it's going to create the opposite of good. There's going to be some bad actors. There's going to be people who probably try to use it to hurt people. There's probably going to be companies who, are looking to just replace people. And with AI, without properly trying to help them to evolve in their role or even just find another role outside of the organization. I work with companies right now that actually do, the people that they have to let go, they actually give them like an extensive training on like preparing to find their next job, like upskilling them. Yeah, because some of these people have been at this job for, let's say, 10, 20 years, and then now they got to leave. They haven't went and applied for a new job in a while. They don't know where to look. They don't have LinkedIn profile. So these companies are investing in that. I mean, that's great. And so I think that it just depends on who's steering the wheel and what's going to happen. But in terms of undermining leadership, I feel that maybe a lot of leaders, this is one of my messages too, is like during all these changes is like leaders don't just try to like cut corners using AI. Being a leader is really so much of the human aspect of it. In this era of like high tech, this is more important time to be what I say high touch as far as in leadership. So yeah, I should double down on actually being more present, being more in person, being more hands-on, having these video calls and
Mm.
being communicative, not just generating emails from AI to your team, but like be your authentic self. This is even a better time to do that because you'll really stand out and people will
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the human connection matters even more so now in the new world of AI, and it's
Yeah.
valued more. You mentioned when you were first starting AI, and even in your resume discussion, it gave you a little bit of confidence, a kind of consistent guidance that you could access, which is a profound framing for AI. What do you think that says about the people and what they're looking for from technology?
I think people just want fair opportunities. I think people, want to be able to, have some of the advantages that others have. And I think AI can help with that to an extent. Um, and so, for example, not everybody can afford to have a coach, a personal coach or an executive coach, obviously, and not many people can afford to do health and wellness things and take the time out to really understand themselves because they're just working multiple jobs and taking care of families and stuff. So I think AI can possibly help with that because you can create something like I did for the youth where each of them have access basically to like a personal mentor in their pocket that they can access when they have questions or they don't know what to do. That technology can help them in some way. And we're doing other work as well with other organizations. And basically, my mindset is like, how can I create something for where like the people who don't really have the advantages can benefit from it in terms of using AI. So I think people would like that. I think even people who are really successful would like that. And like we can
Mhm.
create things that help people, um, that are that don't have as much privileges like we do to be able to like even take time to learn it, right? Because they're
Right.
just they can't eat, they don't even have proper food in the house. And I think my life growing up around that, and then now the work that I do, I see it still a lot. So it's hard to unsee it and, and to go home and be like, you know, have an amazing life, but I know that they don't. It's like, but it's my moral obligation, I feel, to create something to help them because, I would want that. So I think if we can do stuff like that, I think that's what all people would like that if it could be helping people.
Right. And
Yeah.
and I think AI does give us all that ability to level the playing field or give more access to more people, even in terms of
Hmm.
knowledge. If you were talking to a CEO or a healthcare founder right now, someone who's running hard, has a team depending on them, and hasn't stopped to examine what's really driving them, what's the first thing you would tell them to do?
Yeah. Well, it's probably a loaded answer in a way because it requires more work. But I would say to ask themselves like why why haven't they had the opportunity to really pause and assess where they're at? What is driving that? Is it because they're busy? Is it because they have something to prove? Is it because they're in fear of something? Is it because is there something else there that's creating that? Because I truly feel that a leader, the leaders that I've learned from and what I aspire to be is also a person who understands that like you have to consistently be working on yourself and make sure that you're the best version of you if you want to truly help people. So I think that to that I would look at it like, well, first to understand like why you haven't done this assessment of yourself, but and then to I would say, take some time to really figure out what you ultimately want to accomplish in life. I think that the sooner you know what you want to ultimately accomplish in life, the more likely you are to achieve it. But not only that, the 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 more you will be beneficial to others. Because if you're doing something that you hate and you're just doing it because you have to, it's not really beneficial for you or others. So, if you figure out what you ultimately want to accomplish, then you can start to take steps toward that, even if it's in a completely different field. I know a woman who was a nurse at Cedar Sinai, an RN, and she didn't want to do that anymore, and she actively took steps to become an entrepreneur and start her own business, and she developed this amazing product. And it was like that's an example where like she has an amazing job, she has a career, all these things, family, but she realized this is not what I want to do, this is not what I want to and I'm going to make the pivot and change. And then now she's like just her and her essence is just a better person. So, and she'll say that. So it's the same thing. It's just like really understanding yourself. I would tell them to work on themselves, really trying to understand what themselves, what they want, who they
Mm.
want to be. That's always like it always starts within.
And what does that first step really look like in practice? Is it sitting down with yourself, writing,
Mm.
journaling? How does that work?
Yeah, I think that everybody has their processes of what works best for them. I know for me, it was really just every day. Um, trying to become better than I was yesterday. That was like my main objective. So every day I would like map out and write out, what my goals were the day, what my goals of the day are. And then I would look at that and look at my goals of yesterday and say, like, am I doing a little bit more today? Am I improving? Am I that way I can measure it and be able to see the growth? Because in the beginning, when you're starting something new, it's very difficult because you don't see the results that quick. It's like, so you have to keep doing it, so I would say to them people, it's like actionable step would be just like really, first of all, be ready to give yourself some time, but map out like a 90-day plan of what you're going to do every day for 90 days. Maybe you're going to read specifically about a certain type of subject matter for a whole 90 days, as many books as you can, podcasts, whatever, learn as much as you can and develop a new skill and give it time. And so when you do that, you're able to in 90 days look back and see the growth. And then that's also motivating because then you can do more. And that was my process when I got out, and I had to start from basically like how you mentioned at that point of like, where do I start? I just started to set goals and accomplish them, and then look back and see how long it took me, what I learned along the way, and then that over time it compounds because you start to know what it takes to accomplish something, and then you start to become familiar with challenge and adapting, and adapting is a big part of it too. So it's really just like treating yourself like you're like your own case study and understanding yourself would be the process.
I think a lot of the leaders are so inundated with things to do that they don't often take that time to look back. They're always looking forward. And that's a great point that you make, that if you stop and look back, you can then see what has been accomplished and what you may need to do in the next 90 days or next quarter. You're closing in on book 5. Very impressive. You've you've got a non-for-profit, a consulting firm, and a podcast. What's the next chapter for you? What are you building toward?
Well, it's definitely, you know, speaking more is always something that I've wanted to do. So I'll be speaking a lot more, but more intentional speaking. I feel like I'll speak at places where I can really reach as many people as I can. So speaking, I know that I've been talking to a friend of mine who we were thinking about partnering in on a company. He has a company that utilizes AI to create content for social media, and he's been running it for a while. And we had a meeting, so we're in the process of talking about collaborating on that to grow that, which is great because I want to get in deeper into the AI space and be a part of that. We're in this era and be a part of it in some way. And although we're using it in our consulting firm, I want to like actually create a company that's built off of it. And so that's something that I'm looking into right now that I would say within the next few years, we're fully involved in some type of industry, some type of tech company. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But I'm open. I'm always open to like following my heart always. So I think that's the freest you can be is when you can follow your heart. And I know it's hard to get to that point for a lot of people because you have to work every day and do what you have to do. But sometimes you got to sacrifice and struggle for a while, like I did,
Mhm.
to get to a point where then you can follow your heart and fully live free life. So that's another message out there is like you can have it, but you gotta be willing to give up some things to get there on
Right.
the path. And that's what I think a lot of people are afraid to do. They're whether it's their lifestyle or whatever it is, they don't want to sacrifice that to really find their purpose and follow their heart. Whereas with me, I just never was afraid to fail because I was at the bottom already. I know what that's like, and so I'm not afraid of it. And I think that ability has helped me to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time.
What is the legacy that you're thinking about now?
Yeah, not too long ago, I used to have a vision board, and on my vision board was nothing but, materialistic things, cars, houses, businesses, doing all these things. vacations, all these things were on my vision board, and I changed that, less than a year. I changed that, and everything on my vision board now is a feeling, love, and just enthusiasm for life and friendship and gratitude, and it's all that's what I want. So for me, the legacy would be that, I was just that. I was a good friend, I was a good, partner, and I was a good son. I was a good father, and I did everything I can to help the people around me become better and to be happy. And so that's really what matters most to me. All the other stuff really doesn't matter anymore. It will come. I think that when you live like that, the money comes and all of the opportunities come. They literally come. Like you, they come knocking on the door sometimes when they say, when you live like that. And it's happened for me so many times where things will just happen and people will pop into my life, or I'll meet somebody, and it just and I feel I trust it. I trust, where I'm at, and I trust that everything will work out the way it should. But my main goal is to make sure that, I'm really experiencing life the best I can, and that's through my feelings. And as we all know, money doesn't buy happiness. We know that, it's proven. But uh, happiness is really the thing that one of the things that people should really be trying to pursue instead of money. And then money ends up coming because you're doing what you love. So I think that it's
Mhm.
like where most people think the opposite. Um, but I've
Yeah.
learned that it's not that. So
I think that's a great sentiment to leave on, and really believing and loving what you do. This has been Thank you for joining us on the podcast. This has been one of the most honest conversations we've had to date. And what you've built, not just the company and the books and the nonprofit, but the framework about leadership, purpose, and transformation is something that I think will resonate deeply with our audience. Your new book, The Leader's Price: Human Centered Leadership in the Age of AI, publishes in May. We'll make sure to have a link in our show notes. And to our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, make sure to subscribe. And thank you for joining us on the Madison Advisory AI podcast.